I was meant to send this to you. I did record it because there was one night where it was so loud. I was like, the phone must be able to pick this up. So I've just labelled it bass noise, 5th of July, 2022. All you can hear there is just a bit of crackly interference noise that the phone is picking up. And you're just like, what is happening? What is going on?
This is my friend and fellow audio producer, Ash Clivery.
So do you want me on the podcast?
Yeah, you're on there. This is it, right?
Do you not want me to set my good mic?
If you can, yeah, we'll do that.
Lockdown had happened and we just had a kid as well, and we'd gone from sort of everything that we knew about life had just then completely changed, not only because of lockdown, but also there's a new person in the house. Me and my partner, we'd kind of gone from leading very separate lives to then just being completely enclosed in this space. It's end of terrace in West Norwood, opposite the cemetery. So you get a lot of the birds, you get all the parakeets flying around that apparently Jimi Hendrix released into London. I'm, as you well know, a podcast producer. I'm obviously more than happy to help you out on your podcasts. My partner works in communications at the time for the UK government. I just remember Giles Peterson was on Worldwide FM every single morning. It was such a change that there were a lot of positive things to come out of it. So obviously Giles being on the radio every day was just one of the most incredible periods of my life, being a sort of a bit of a radiophile and a audio geek. It was like that bit in Inception. You enter the dream, but you don't know how you got there and you don't know how you get out. You just land in the middle of it. It felt a bit like that. It never fluctuated. It never seemed to start. It never seemed to end. It was just there. It was just quite a large drone. It's quite deep. I was getting to the point where I was like, I've just had enough. And there were times actually where I had to put my noise cancelling headphones on, like with nothing, sometimes with a podcast on, sometimes without, just to get rid of it. From memory, this is all from memory, because I wasn't really subconsciously thinking that I might talk about this one day.
Yo, T-Bone, did you produce this?
Sounds good, right?
It is always louder at night than during the day. It is always louder inside than outside. Of course, there's the aliens. It has to be the aliens. It's Gabriel's trumpets. It's a sign of the end times. It's government targeting, specifically electronically targeting individuals. It's plants. I actually really enjoyed that one. Air travel disrupts the hum for 72 to 100 hours. You go on an air flight and that stops the hum in its tracks, but only for about maybe between 3 to 4 days. What is striking about that is that an auditory effect called autoacoustic emissions does the exact same thing. My name is Glen MacPherson, and I'm the director of the World Hum Map and Database Project. My standing rule is that everybody gets one chance with me. If someone makes what I think on the surface might be some outlandish claim, my response is, okay, extraordinary claims do require extraordinary evidence. I'm willing to listen. right up to the point where I start hearing complete serial falsehoods, or when people supplant scientific terms with poetry or with emotion. And by the way, that's all well and good. I like poetry. I believe in emotions. I do believe in these things, but that's not my interest in this topic. So I do take a very strict, actually, scientific view and approach to all of this.
What was the thing about getting a radio license?
Well, this is actually nothing to do with my scientific project. It's just that I live in a place where I spend a good deal of time in the outdoors and some 4x4ing. And I've always wanted to participate in search and rescue, but in a way that can work with my time constraints. And therefore, as you well know, during times of emergency and natural disaster and whatnot, the ham radio people step up and they really fulfill a crucial role in different scenarios. And we live in a place where we know a monster earthquake is coming, within the next X number of years. And all that taken together, as well as my general scientific fascination with things, I thought I'd just finally go ahead and get that qualification. I live in a place called the Sunshine Coast of British Columbia, and the place is not well understood even by most people who live in Vancouver. This is a peninsula. I can look across the water and actually see parts of the lower mainland of Vancouver, but one must take a ferry to get here. About a 35-minute ferry ride from West Vancouver. It's a fairly small place in terms of population, but a fairly large place geographically. We have two towns with populations of roughly 5,000 and 7,000 people, but during the summer, this is considered a prime tourist destination. So our population can actually double or even triple on certain days during the summer. I was living in this same area just a few miles away from here in the spring of 2012. It was quite unusual. In the evenings, after about 10 p.m., I had heard what I assumed were float planes. Because we do get a fair amount of that traffic here. But after a few nights, that made no sense. Simply because of the number of them and the timing of it all. So when I heard this sound about 10:15 p.m. one night, I said, okay, it's time to figure out what this is. And I walked outside and the sound stopped. That was interesting. So I thought, okay, fine, here we are, it's somewhere in the house. Tried to track down the usual suspects, like a fridge motor or some other thing. Ultimately, I turned off the mains to the house. And then the sound got even louder. Logically, I said, okay, this is something close by. Walked around the neighborhood outdoors, and of course I couldn't hear anything. It's a very quiet, sort of semi-rural forested area. It's a dead-end street, gravel road. It was very quiet. The highway was fairly close, but the noise I was hearing bore no resemblance to highway noise. So what I did is I got into my car, and then with the doors closed, I could hear it again. Now, completely perplexed, I thought, okay, wait a minute. I can conduct an experiment now. So I drove. And I drove all around. Drove into the mountains, went over to the gravel mine in the little town of Seasheld. And wherever I stopped and turned off the vehicle with the doors closed and windows up, I could hear it, unless there was a fairly loud ambient noise that might mask the other noise. So now I was completely stumped. And so what I did is what it turns out the vast majority of people who find my project do. So I went to the internet, went to Google and typed in unusual low frequency humming noise. And lo and behold, there it was. With a lot of ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous conspiracy, commentary. I had been a member of this Yahoo group that was devoted to this topic, a fairly small number of members. I started playing around with Google Maps. Very early on, the people who submitted their information were members of that small group. What is really interesting from that point is how within a year, I guess word had spread and knowledge of the project and the map just exploded.
I don't hear the rumbles until the vibration, like the bed upstairs, literally vibrates.
I think the nausea is probably caused
within
from not being
2 or 3 or 4 years had reached a frenzy, and there were a number of major news stories along the way which accelerated the project. The major story in Canada would be the so-called Windsor hum.
The sound we're talking about is a nighttime nuisance, and it's taken over otherwise peaceful neighborhoods in Windsor. Not only is
that, interestingly enough, has got nothing to do with my project. That's an actual sonic disturbance caused by the Americans down on Zug Island.
Our country.
It's really, really irritating. It's relentless. It doesn't seem to let up.
It sounded like there was a deep resonating bass.
You think there's a tank moving in your neighborhood, or there's a truck idling outside your window?
As time went on and as the large number of data points started flooding in, what I could then do is start filtering those points down. Those reports, which ended up as points on the map, could be then filtered through a very strict set of criteria. So what I have now is a very, very tight data set. I'm not completely transparent about the filters I use, but there's some I can discuss to decide if the person is hearing the hum or if they're hearing something else. And that, in fact, has turned into a significant part of the project, is helping people sort out and tease out that difference. If we take a look at some of the famous so-called hotspots in history, the first would be the town of Bristol in England, the little seaside town of Largs in Scotland, Taos, New Mexico, Kokomo, Indiana, Hueytown, Alabama. If you look at the hum map and then overlay it with a population density map, the correspondence between the two is absolutely striking. Hum reports follow population density.
Okay, so I think we should probably go through the kind of 4 main theories for what it is. You said there was 4?
The first was Deming's VLF hypothesis, that the world hum is the direct result of very powerful, worldwide, very low frequency transmissions used for communicating with submerged submarines. Let's just admit right now that there are several of his approaches and viewpoints that I think can be rejected out of hand and can be discredited. Global warming denial, fanatical gun rights, all that's fine. He can go have those beliefs. But I took his paper for what it was, and it's actually an excellent paper. Number 2, and the one that we have really good reason to believe is the most reasonable theory now, is that the hum is in fact internally generated by the body, as tinnitus is, but in a completely different way. With number 3, it is the possibility that the hum is now the grand accumulation of human activity. In other words, human activity, that which creates noise, has accelerated dramatically over the past century with high-speed travel, with marine travel, with mining, with the industrial equipment, air conditioners, heat pumps. And it could be that there's some grand accumulation of infrasound and sound that's only now detectable by a fraction of the human population. The fourth is that this is a geological phenomenon. Like, for example, there have been researchers who have reported unusual sound effects just before seismic activity. And it could be that there is some very long-playing geological process that generates frequencies, or the perceptions of frequencies, that again, only a small fraction of the human population can detect. So that outlines, or at least lists, the four theories. So we believe that the world hum and autoacoustic emissions, which are well known, by the way, to any audiologist, these are spontaneously generated noises within the human auditory system. It could be that the hum and autoacoustic emissions do perhaps arise from a similar or shared source. I haven't heard it recently. And the reason why is because of where I live. When I, a few years back, moved deep into the forest in a little place here called Half Moon Bay. I know in California there's a famous Half Moon Bay, but we have one here too. And my first night in that new house, the hum roared. It was so loud that I almost put myself in the company of the people who were, this is a bloody nuisance. The only advice that I have for people who want to deal with the hum is to mask it with another less obnoxious noise, such as a water feature or a bathroom fan. The forest is a tremendous absorber of sound. I was able to detect it or sense it much more loudly. Right now, I live less than 40 meters from a very active thoroughfare here. And I live in a well, maybe that's enough information, but I live in a condominium building as well with dozens and dozens of units. And because of all the daily noise in my life, I haven't had much opportunity. Whenever I go off-grid camping up into the mountains and stop for a while and listen, yeah, then I can detect it. But it's not a daily experience for me, at least not now, and not where I live.
This is a weird question, but do you miss it in a way?
Let me be precise. There was a lot of excitement that accompanied my project getting a worldwide stage. My reflection upon that was, so there is some nostalgia with that period. I will say to the listener and to others, I have given up a lot. I've given up my privacy. I've become notorious in this small place. All my students and most people around here, they look at me and they go, oh yeah, that's that guy with that wacko project kind of thing. All the notoriety and the fame, I don't think it was a positive thing, to be honest. However, I do have some reminiscence, some fond reminiscence of the excitement that accompanied the explosion of interest in the project. That I wouldn't say I miss, but I certainly do think it was an interesting and fun time.
Yeah, of course. And then my partner came up to me and she said, oh, read this article. They're talking about the thing that you've got. And it's apparently it's called the global hum. And I was like, bloody hell. You know, you felt like the madness had been vindicated a little bit.
You checked the map, didn't you?
I did. I had a look at the map.
What did the map show you?
I didn't look at it in detail, but other people around me in West Norwood, in South East London, had spotted it as well. There were a few in Crystal Palace. So, it's good to know that I'm not the only one, I think. or wasn't the only one. Left London on the 31st of December, sort of just for a few months really, and it's completely stopped. I'm in Geneva now, and there's no flashback to anything that even sounds remotely like the hum. You've got the sounds of the city. We've got a 4-lane road outside, 30 miles an hour, traffic all day, every day, thousands of cars a day. Again, still nothing compared to that hum.
Thanks to Ash Clivery and Glen MacPherson for speaking to me for this episode. Glen MacPherson is the man behind the global hum map. If you're hearing a hum, you can report it. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you found this experience rewarding, then please like, subscribe, write a review. The algorithms that help other people find these things really like that sort of stuff. It's a nice way to say thanks. This episode was recorded, produced and sound designed by myself, Tom Wally. Music is supplied by Epidemic Sound.
Yo, T-Bone, did you produce this?
Sounds good, right?